What is going on, guys? Knights here, really excited to bring you patch number 7 of Mordhau, and this is the first major content update that they have brought into the game, and it's a very good sign seeing how much work they've put into this update, and it's definitely exciting knowing that they're hard at work and working to make their game better and more enjoyable. So first off, we have a new map called Crossroads. It's roughly the same size as camp, except there are a ton of horses at either side of spawns, and there are 5 spawns as opposed to 4, but there's only 3 main points. So there's the point in the middle and then the 2 base camps, and then on either side of the main castle there's a spawn point for either team. So whichever team has the central zone capped, they can spawn inside of the walls of the castle. Whereas if you don't have central cap, you're going to spawn on the outskirts. So not way back at base unless you want to go ahead and grab a horse. So very unique design, very cool map. There are some concerns about it. There's a lot of fireball usage, and it might be worth using a perk like Fireproof or Cat if you're going to be playing on this map, given there are a lot of high up structures and a ton of fireball abusers. Next, they brought in a mortar, which I used once. I'll show you guys a clip of it, but as you can see, you're fairly mobilized, or immobilized rather, from movement, so it can rotate right and left very minimally. It's probably about a 90-degree angle tops that it can rotate, so it's really for just taking people off the horses if there's a lot of horses on the map. I could imagine if you're trying to play horse, it can be frustrating if there's not a lot of people around, but it is good for horse versus horse, so it's definitely an interesting take. And the mortar is alright. I don't think it's going to be a heavy hitting weapon though for this map, but maybe on other maps in the future I can see it being really good. Next we have the javelin, which is basically a short spear, but it is dedicated to throwing, and it is significantly better. It does a lot of damage. It can one-shot people to the head with 1 and 2 armor, and it can one-shot a no armored chest, so look out for that. You also get 2 of them as opposed to 1, and I've been seeing a lot of people with these lately, so watch out for that. And next we have the heavy it's not a warhammer, it's a one-handed heavy axe, and it has a hammer on the other side for building structures, and I like what they've done with this. These both are 3-point weapons, which typically hasn't had a whole lot of variety, and I think they do reflect that in their point value in being 3-point weapons. They're not overpowered for being 3-point, but they are better than most of the 2-point weapons, and I'm hoping this is going to reduce short spear users that were used to throwing their short spears a lot due to the javelin being part of the game. So I like what they're doing with that. The new map isn't perfect, but it's definitely fun, and it's better than not having new content. Alright, you guys, so going down the patch notes, I will be displaying them on screen, so go ahead and read those if you're interested in all the in-depth changes that were made. But I will be just quickly going over the main changes. So as I mentioned before, new map, 2 new weapons, a few changes to Taiga, which is good. As for combat, there were several shield buffs, and I'm going to just be giving you guys my overall opinion on these changes, so whether they're good and bad. So for the shield buffs, I think it's kind of a bad change personally. I don't know why they did this. They just, a few weeks ago, they just buffed kick range against shield, and now they just slightly nerfed it. So I don't understand that. They're trying to cater to the shield players' frustrations. I don't really like this. I think shields they should consider making shields destructible, so that when you take, 5 to 10 hits with a shield, you need to go to the crates and repair them, something along the lines, or have the shield get knocked out of your hand easier, but when you have just your sword out, once your shield gets knocked, have your stamina kind of increase, just like the buckler, but have that be an intrinsic perk to all shields, and then buff the buckler even more. I think this would be a fine change for shields, and it would increase those players to have to know how to actually use the sword, because half those players don't even know what a parry is. They just hold the block. So I don't think it's a massive issue. Shield players are still easy to kill in some occasions, but I don't think this is necessarily a good change for the shields. Not mad about it, but I don't really understand where they're coming from with it. As you can see, the naked movement speed is now buffed. This is fine. This is a good change. It'll make light armor builds a little bit more viable. Some various horse changes. I think it's good that the horse bumps slow the horse rider down a little bit too now. I've been, wondering how they're going to nerf the horses, because they knock you from too far away when you're like 3/4 of the way done with your swing at them, and they still knock you even though your swing is like a foot away from them about to hit. So this is a fine change. It's still going to cancel you out of your swing, but at least it's going to slow them down, and maybe your teammate will get a good swing in on them. So next we have weapons and equipment. Now they did an insane amount of changes here, guys, so bear with me. I'm going to start out with the longbow and the recurve. So first off, projectile speed is buffed for the longbow, and the draw time is buffed, but the reload slightly reduced. So basically what it means is when your arrow's already reloaded, your draw time's going to be faster, so you're going to, in a sense, be able to quick scope faster. But if you're doing arrow shot to arrow shot as fast as you possibly can regardless, it's not going to really be any faster than it was. But I think this is a good change for the longbow. Same with the recurve. The crossbow damage, by the way, has been buffed against armored torsos, so this is fine. Crossbow, in my opinion, is not very good. I mean, it does high damage, but the reload's bad, and when you're reloading, you can get nailed by other archers. So I think it's good that it has buffed torso damage against heavy armor. Recurve bow is slightly faster, along with having bonus movement speed while in the process of drawing your bow. This is kind of interesting. I kind of like it. It's an interesting take on it. Now, moving down here, we see that Huntsman has been buffed. Well, not the perk itself, but the cost has been buffed, and it's been reduced to 1 point. Same with the Ranger perk. I think this makes sense for Ranger. As for Huntsman, I don't really agree with this. I think the only reason why they do this is to convince these new archer mains, the bonus amount of archers that are going to be on the battlefield. It's to try to convince them to fight each other, especially considering the longbow projectile speed got buffed. I think this is good. I think it's going to hopefully convince archers to fight each other and not really worry about the rest of the battle until they've won the fight against the other archer. So we'll have to see how that assimilates into the game. As for the overall poleaxe, bardiche / halberd weapons, they all have received a variety of buffs and nerfs. Same with the billock. Bardiche's ultimate mode can now one-shot to the leg with no armor. This is really good for it. Various alternate modes look like they kind of got buffed all across the board for the higher cost point weapons. Normal axe has a nerf and buff, where it has faster combo time but slower initial attack speed. Executioner's sword received a small nerf here. It's not really going to do anything, in my opinion. The 5 point against the head is barely anything. You're still going to two-shot people. And as for the stab damage, yeah, it kind of sucks that they nerfed it, but honestly, it's such a good weapon for the cost, and the stab damage is nothing to really write home about anyways, so I'm not too mad about this. I think this is fine. Zweihander looks like it got a few buffs, but some sort of stamina cost if you miss, so higher risk, higher reward with the Zweihander. I think this is good. For being such a high cost weapon, I think it should be really, really strong, which it is. Great sword, half swording got buffed. This is fine. It'll encourage alternate mode usage more. I think this is all around good with the alt modes. I don't think people have been using them nearly enough. E-Stock got a buff against plate torso. This is great. E-Stock has been kind of sucking up until now. Bastard sword has some buffs. Same with longsword and messer. They all got increased swing speed. Dagger and cleaver, mace, all these low point weapons got a slight buff to either their damage or their release speed. Stab damage nerfed on the cleaver though. So various nerfs and buffs. I think they're all pretty logical, you guys. There's nothing to be too pissed off about. I think everything looks pretty clean that they've done with the game. The only thing I'm a little confused by is the shield buff, but again, nobody using shield is going to be top tier players, so I'm not too worried about it. As for the maps and game modes, they fixed the entrance on Mountain Peak. Some various exploits have been changed. So held shield blocking, lowering animations are now snappier. So basically they're making shields better in general. Again, not a huge fan. Added emblems, bug fixes. E-stock proportions are now thicker, so they made it like a real sword and not a needle. Fog fix for Grad. It's easier to get over the spikes now on stairs. This is good. They do block you even if they're not facing you. Audio improvements for the swords, and UI has been changed. 75 damage dealt. This is the main one here. If you do 75 damage in frontline, it counts as a kill. I think this is good. The more kills, the merrier. Even if it's against me, I think if somebody worked to do 3/4 of your health, they deserve the kill if they die. Various just UI changes, and this is all good stuff here, guys. Other than that, there's nothing really else to the game, just that one new map, but you can tell they're kind of setting themselves up to come out with a lot more maps and modes, and this is overall very good stuff, you guys. So I'm going to send you over to some gameplay of the new map. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the quick gameplay. Keep in mind it was just like an hour or two of me messing around in Frontline, so the clips aren't too insane, but I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. Running? I don't think so.
For the king!
Yeah, that's right, boys. Hunt him down.